As always, very informal and stream of consciousness style of relating. So there's not any set topic, um, but everybody's aware of kind of the current trend, the current energetic trends that are going on.
Yeah, like, and it's weird. A lot of people are like coming to the light of what's going on. Like, perhaps I wouldn't have seen this like 3 years ago when people are waking up, but now I see a lot more people like waking up. I think it's the energetic shift,
Yeah.
but I don't know where it actually started. But now I see it a lot more. Um, but there are obviously like steps to how you're waking up and the stages to like to your awakening, like your personal awakening.
Yeah, it's different for everybody, every individual.
Right.
So,
Mm.
your name is Gaythri, yes? Is that said right?
Yes. Yeah. My
A-
name is Gaythri,
And it's
but I
G
prefer
A
to be
Y
called
T H R I.
Gaythr. Yes.
Okay, just verifying. And you're in Singapore.
Yeah, I'm from Singapore.
So this is Gaythri. Gaythri, welcome.
Welcome, Gary.
Thank you.
As in, I welcome you to your own show. It's kind of weird.
I need it. I need that sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I need an introduction because I never really introduce myself.
I know.
Um.
I understand.
Yeah. Anyway, we've had like amazing weather here. Fresno is normally crappy and dirty and hot, but we've had lots of, and like you've seen the pictures, crazy
Yeah,
clouds
it's
too.
very beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm
Is it
outside.
always like really cold and like is it very similar to San Francisco?
Uh, it's normally doesn't get too cold. It freezes every once in a while, but we've been trending toward warm mostly. Summers are burning hot, baking like 110 plus, and then winters will get a few rains here and there, but nothing. I don't know. It's Fresno.
Right. It's always hot in here, so I'm like kind of used to. And to be honest, I don't know how I would like fare in a very cold weather,
Do you have?
just because I can't even take. Like I've lived in Australia. It used to be unpredictable. Like 5 minutes it will be cold, and 5 minutes will be like scorching hot.
Hmm.
Um, but I think I like Singapore better because of the just the constant hot, or it's just raining at times. But
So you don't have
it's like
four distinct seasons?
no, I don't have
Is it
four
just
seasons.
like winter
But
versus summer, kind of?
no, it's more like monsoon
It's monsoon.
all
Okay.
around.
Okay.
Yeah, we have like two major monsoons, and that's about it.
So humid all the time,
Very humid. It's like 80 to 89% of humidity in the air, like all the time, which is the downside of it. But
which is hair, right?
it's very,
Does it bother your hair?
yeah, it gets very sticky, and you feel like angry all the time because it gets very sticky and
The
like
frizzies. I mean, I can only imagine as a woman with like hair, like lots of hair. That's you have kind of curly hair,
oh
right? Does that bother with
my.
your hair preparation?
I'm the type of female where I do not take care of my hair. Like I swear to you, today is like my bad hair day because I wash it and I don't do anything with it.
uh,
But if it gets really sticky, I push it up to ponytail, but that's about it.
yeah.
Um, it's weird. I used to have straight hair when I went to Australia. My hair texture completely changed. Like I suddenly started having like African types of textured
That's kind
hair,
of
which is
cool.
so weird.
Your hair just morphed.
Yeah, it's like I had like straight hair, like more straight, more wavy, and now I have like curly, like crazy curly hair. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of. I don't know why. It's like it's weird. Um, like you can see my transformation as a kid to now. I look very different from how I used to look like a kid and teenager and a post-teenager and now like an adult.
I mean, that's
Um,
that's something also that people I know are actually going through very visible physical changes, and it's not just like, oh, you change as you get older. They're saying like it feels like I'm shedding a skin physically, or like you're saying your hair is physically changing how it's
yes,
how it's
exactly.
made up, basically, like curly versus straight. That's a pretty big change. Like, you don't just all of a sudden change from straight to curly normally.
Like, can I tell you something? I have been able to manifest the way I want to look, which is so weird. And everything about my health. If let's say I want something gone, like let's say I want something to change, it kind of automatically happens. I just don't know how. It's like an inherent gift that I always had as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I used to dream a lot about having curly hair, and suddenly I woke up to having curly hair. Like it was like a miracle.
Well, did your parents notice this, or?
Yeah, my mom was like, "How come you have curly hair now all of a sudden?" Like, my mom? How did this happen?
That's
And it's
hilarious.
just a lot of my high school friends and classmates and teachers, they don't recognize me. I mean, I was actually on training yesterday and I was facing my classmate. I did not go up and say hi to him because it was awkward. It's been like about 10 years, but he did not recognize me. He was looking straight into my eyes, but he didn't know who I was. I was like, that's weird. And I didn't want to go say anything either, just because it's been a long time.
Have you had any other changes that you've manifested other than the hair?
Oh, I've manifested most of my life, like whether it comes to money or a change of place, it happens to me pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was in high school. I was like, I need to go to Australia. I kept praying. I was like, I need to go to Australia. I need to go to Australia. And like 4 months down the line, like my dad, you know, brought us to Australia for vacation, and thereon, like I just stayed. I did my college in Australia, and it just kind of happened. And I look back and I'm, I get startled.
How many
Like,
years were you there?
How many years? Sorry.
How many years were you in Australia?
About 2.5 years. Like.
Okay.
I was there from like late 2013 till like beginning of 2015. That's when I came back.
You know what I think it is that a lot of people don't realize as far as manifesting is it's the same thing as just basic selfishness versus connecting with your surroundings, right? Because unless you imagine that you're the only person that's existing, like if you're doing this solipsism thing or something like that, like you're just super selfish and you're like, I want this, I want that, right? And then you try and manifest that. Well, guess what? You're hitting up against other people's like manifesting attempts as well, because it has to come together, and you have to collude the manifesting desires or feelings or whatever, and then it will actually work because you're communicating with the other nodes in the existence. Like everybody is a node of perception, right?
Yeah, that's why I completely stopped manifesting anything now, except for like for the things that I absolutely need, and it's gonna get me to a better place, and not for my ego desires. The only reason I started manifesting was when I was about 15 years old. A friend of mine, she was like, Gaythri, I know this sounds crazy and lame, but I think you should listen to me on something that I'm about to tell you. And then she went on about the law of attraction, The Secret. I was 15 years old. I was like very curious, and I was already interested in a lot of metaphysical, occult stuff. So when she first told me, I was like, that sounds interesting. I was like, let me try to do something about it, or let me, try to see if it actually works out for me. So there was like a carnival near my house about a few months after she told me. I was like, I'm gonna test it on something today, and I was like, I'm gonna win one of those prizes on the the prize list for the carnival. And one of it was the iPad. I think it was 2009 when this happened. I was like, I'm gonna get one of those iPads. But believe it or not, I actually did not win. But when I came home, my dad had a new iPad lying on the table. He just got it.
Nice.
I was like, that's the first time that I actually believed, like, I was like, this is real. Like, it happened to me after an hour when I decided to test it. And then from then on, I started believing it. I started kind of utilizing it in my life.
Yeah.
But the weird thing was, I was actually using it to evade, like, crazy bad situations at school because I was bullied a lot. So I used to use that to kind of shield myself, but
Mm-hmm.
I only understood later on that I was not really shielding myself. I was just avoiding to face the reality.
Yeah.
You know, I was using that to kind of divide myself into a safe space, but
Right.
in the end, it came back to bite me.
Yeah, you have to
So, like,
deal
the
with
things
it.
they,
Deal with it
yeah,
now or deal with it later.
later,
Otherwise,
it's always gonna come up, right?
and
It's
if
like,
it comes later, it's gonna be more powerful and harder to deal with.
yeah,
So it's better
absolutely.
to
So
deal with your shit now.
I completely stopped manifesting.
Mm.
Um, Not so much because I don't believe it. I absolutely believe it, but I just don't want anything except purity and pure consciousness attached to it. So it
Mm-hmm.
would manifest from a higher positive realm other than something else that, something
Yeah.
a bit more negative or,
Yeah.
like shady,
Yeah.
basically.
I know what you're saying. It's when you. I think you have to kind of taste what it feels like to have your life being lived in that pure state, because otherwise you don't know what it is. You're still in this like it's like a needy graspy mode, or else it's a I need to defend against something, which is still needy, obviously, right? So
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
you like get a taste of what it feels like to be living your life without having to project out like this desire, this fear needs to be taken care of, this goal needs to be accounted for. Like if you stepped outside of that and you see how it works together naturally, then you
Yeah,
have manifesting as almost like a tool if you want to very delicately like sift something, like move something around, but it's different than I want this and I'm gonna go try to get it, because that always fails.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just that, like, we always want what we want. We think we know everything about ourselves, but sometimes it's just what the creator wants for us, but it's not in a very ignorant way, but it's like that, the creator is always within you as well. So it's also about trusting that external or the internal factor, which is more powerful than we think.
Yeah, the creator guiding principle, just that which holds everything together. It's something that you as your individuated bit of consciousness are not directly that. You are something, you're part of that, but you're not the grand orchestrator. You have a part in it. You have a piece in it. And if you imagine if, you know, Aurora talks about us being like in an orchestra, like we're in a symphony kind of thing, right? Everybody's playing their own particular thing. You are not the orchestrator. Like that guy's up there and he's doing this, you know, like you're supposed to cue off of him and see how he's helping you to seam and weave your notes into the rest of the symphony. And if you
Right.
carry that analogy forward and somebody just forgets that other people are playing and helping make this unified piece of music, and they're just like, they just start banging on their drum all weird, or they start playing something like cued to the bird that's flying outside, then it's going to disrupt whatever, it's going to disrupt the harmony of the overall piece of music. And the orchestrator is going to come and say, hey man, like you gotta take a break here, you know, we're going to have somebody replace you till you work your stuff out, you know. And that's kind of like what we're
Yeah,
doing here.
it's very true. Yeah, that's very true. I think, yeah, like you said, I think we hinder the progress more than we think most of the times.
Yeah.
Um, Either through attaching ourselves to our like negative, uh, thinking, which then binds itself to like different thought forms, and they become entities or different, crazy archonic beings. Um, it's just, the past few months I've started to, like, I've come to the realization where like discipline and willpower is the most important thing for human beings, to change their lives. Like, people think that, like, for example, like astrology, like I've always told my friends recently, like, astrology is a tool to break its boundaries. It's not a tool, like, it's not a frame for your entire life. You use it to break it, basically. Um, because I feel like your life and your destiny is boundless. Like it's not bounded by any fortune telling or
Right.
anything you even perceive like from
Hmm.
within. Like you can always break it, but you can only break it with like a great amount of willpower and like great discipline, which is not always easy, but with practice, like we are like you know creatures of habit, so it's basically creating like a habit where we just have to kind of inculcate it in our daily lives. Like we have to be disciplined and
It's like lifting a weight.
really strong.
It's
Yeah,
it's like I was telling you about meditation. If you start doing it
yeah,
every day, it and let it go outside of the whole thing where it's like I'm trying to do this, right? Because that
yeah,
becomes an ego thing in and of itself. It becomes like a self competition, and then you have fears attached to that. If you just have it like I'm just doing this every day simply because I do. In fact, I don't even know why I'm doing it every day. I've just noticed that now I'm doing it every day. If you do that for 20 or 30 days, then eventually, once you've gotten past the sort of pains of inserting the thing, then you'll be able to have a clear just vision of what it does and how it's doing it. And
yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
way that something is allowed to change, because we're the best self saboteurs that exist. We're
Yes.
so good at it. We know our inner workings. We know, like, when we don't like
We
something,
know
how to,
the
like,
loopholes in
how
and
to
out.
sneak around, the side. Like, I'm not associated with that one over there. Like, we're very good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And and another thing that kind of really struck me recently is that a lot of spiritual people are trying to shut out from the real world. I mean, the 3D world,
Mm-hmm.
like phasing people, like you would see them bounded by four walls in their house, never having to go outside. And I think that's the best way to, like, escapism, basically.
Yeah.
They're trying to escape the outer world. They think that they just have to kind of deal
They're
with the
they're
internal stuff
they're doing
and they're
the
fine.
the monk in a cave thing, but they have like electronic gadgets in their cave, and they have toilets and things.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, I just wish I can scream at those people and like, don't do this to yourself. There's actually more demons out there. I mean, idle mind is a devil's workshop. Like,
Yeah.
you just being by yourself is going to bring you more crazy stuff from within than you can imagine. Than you actually going out and meeting people and interacting. Because I feel like that's real shadow work. Like when you actually meet people and talk to them
Yeah.
and the way you respond, the way they respond back to you, and every single situation has certain implicit and explicit meanings that actually will change your life if you consciously look at them every single
Hmm.
day. And it's so pivotal to our spiritual growth. Like um, spiritual people, especially like when they follow the new age way of living, it all gets distorted for them.
It always gets turned into a thing, like an ownership thing, and then they want to wear it like a label or something, and that just always takes away from what it's actually doing for you. Like, for instance, eating like as a vegan or a pescatarian or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's
Yes.
healthy for people, generally speaking, to not eat meat. It just is. Like, everybody kind of feels and understands that on a very basic level, but they self sabotage themselves by going and posting all the pictures and then talking shit on meat eaters. Like, it's
Yeah,
self sabotaging
absolutely.
the actual good it's supposed to be doing.
Like I used to have the same mindset until I had a rude awakening myself, where my dad was actually explaining about this. He told me that there's a lot of mythological meat eaters I come from the southern India.
Hmm.
So he told me that a lot of yogis, meaning people who have supernatural powers
Hmm.
from meditation. So he told me that some of them were meat eaters and they have achieved enlightenment.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's not to say that your diet is
And some of
the
them smoke cigarettes, and some of them go have wild sex over in the corner. Like, it's not any of
yes,
that. It's something It's something different.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like maybe alcohol is meant for you, or maybe having wild sex is meant for you. It all comes down to that,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's where we have to be totally like non-judgmental. Like we can't judge anybody for doing anything. They could go out and probably become like ISIS terrorists.
You,
If that's what they're meant to do. I mean, I used to feel like maybe I should go bomb the whole of Syria because it's gonna probably get rid of all these, black markets. It's probably gonna save the world. But I was wrong. I was kind of, crazy for thinking that. Like,
you know,
you can't. It's nothing to do.
yeah, I mean, it's not the whole fire with fire thing is that's just part
Yeah.
of the Lush producing program. That's not having anything to do with stopping terrorism. The thing is like what I've noticed in how people interact with each other is there is like the personal projection of your own personal worldview that you hold invisibly, but everybody else kind of sees it when you open your mouth, right? And then there is when you literally have a group of people together that's not being like monitored and controlled by, say, a leader or a teacher or something. Like, you have a group, a raw group of people. That group self-monitors, and the units all play off of each other. And if somebody, say, fucks up and does something mean or rude, the whole entire group is simultaneously aware of it, and each other member does something, says something, acts in a certain way that person receives directly from the group exactly what they're doing, and they understand exactly why the group maybe doesn't appreciate it, and then they're gonna change because of that, because nobody needed to say, hey, you can see even body reactions, like that's how humans are supposed to learn. That's how they're supposed to teach. We've extricated it out to a book knowledge thing, a philosophy, and it's been just removed from the actual lived experience of having a group like check your ass when you're being a dumbass. Like it's simple. It's simple like that when it actually happens, but most people don't even know what that feels like because we've become so individuated from each other, from the community.
Yeah, that's very true. And also, it's also a sense of belonging when we try to attach ourselves to certain communities. Like, I mean, the innate nature of human beings is that we want to belong somewhere. We want to belong to somebody or some cult, as we call it.
Culture.
So,
We're all part of a cult. It's one giant cult, that calls out other cults for being cults.
Yes. Oh my god. Like, crazy, hypocritic world that we live in. But yeah.
It's always the pot calling the kettle black, or what reverse of that. Whatever it is, it's like it's always just pure hypocrisies until you've actually come into that very raw, like, self-critiquing kind of like, I'm going to look into the darkest, ugliest corners of my own being, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to work it out, and I'm going to go through all the trauma and pain that I have to until I find my balance, or I find something, like, or I'm going to go and you're willing to face anything to get at that spot. But everyone that's doing the other thing, they simply haven't done that. It's just self-work on an individual level. It's nothing more than that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, like I always, like, I follow Bernard's work. He always talk about how, I'm not against politics, but I feel like you should look at yourself first before you want to change the world. Like, be the change in what, as a person, what you want to see in other people or in the world. So be that change first before you try and impose it on other people. Not even try to impose, like, kind of make changes or try to make it better for. So I feel like that's absolutely true, and that's kind of also why I stopped advising people unless they absolutely ask me.
Yes.
But with my closest kin, it just kind of slips out of my tongue all the time.
I mean, that's expected within a family. Like,
I'm like,
they will let you know, like, if you're crossing boundaries for the most part. But yeah, like, that's something else that people, I see it now myself. I'm attracting more people and things, and people are talking to me, people are emailing me, people are texting me, like, all this stuff, right? So I'm having to learn how to protect myself against everybody else who's like, hey, like, this is the thing, like, take it. I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Like, dive in.
It's like thought forms that certain people might feel like I have the whole story, like I know everything. To me, I see directly, you've done, like, no self-work whatsoever, and you're just, like, throwing your projection out and then putting the name Gary on it and saying this is something that's happening. It's like, not at all. At all. But I can't even tell them what they're doing, because then the defense will come up, It's just like learning. It's just learning.
It's like, it's like they get defensive when you actually start really talking about the real shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, ooh, like, you know, it's like something comes into them and they're like, they're totally like bedazzled. So,
Like the hairs on the back of the neck stand up, you know, they're like,
yeah.
oh, what's going on, you
It's
know?
like they like, you know, they're almost like you're a contender now. They're like trying to attack you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at every single opportunity that they, you know, get.
Which stops,
Sorry.
which stops, you know, any meaningful interaction from happening because, you know, I can't interact with somebody who's operating from ego very much. Like, if you're still letting that in there a little bit, fine. You know, everybody has a little bit of it. I have a little bit of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're coming to me with majorly from ego perspective, I don't even talk to that anymore. Like that thing can't understand anything that I'm saying. So even if I said my honest opinion about what you're coming to me with, none of it's gonna touch you. So it's not helping me and it's not helping you. So I don't say anything. You
Yeah.
know.
I absolutely get what you mean because I went through that personally. Like, meaning I used to have the ego self where someone genuine with their self-worth used to come and tell me things, and I'm like, I used to project it back with my ego self, but I wasn't realizing it. And it took me several months. I was like, Gaythri, like, you're making a mistake. Why do you keep doing it? It makes you feel like shit. And it's like you're just doing this because it's a power play at the end of the day. They just want to be on the top of the game.
Yep.
And then I finally stopped. I'm like, I'm not letting you control me, you alter ego. So that's when it all stopped. And yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, we all have anger, but, you know, it's more about to see where the anger is like kind of sprouting from, and then you kind of kill it off from the roots, meaning like one experience or cumulative experiences that kind of brings out this anger or perhaps rage like you were talking about in the other video.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of cut it off from the roots. Like, you have to understand why you had it. Probably we have to trace it back to a childhood or something really traumatic. And then when we look at that, I feel like when we really face that, I feel like that's when these experiences start to subside, and, you know, eventually you just have a pleasant everyday moment. You know, in the moment kind of.
And it's not coming with like a need to impose yourself onto other people. Like, for instance, when I do what I do on my channel, I'm doing it because I enjoy it, for one, and I like interacting with people and I like being creative, and that's the whole thing. Like, I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I've never said like, here's the grand plan for life and you better follow it or you should follow it. I don't care what you do with it. I simply like doing it, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I can play that game when people come to me and they're like, hey, you know, there's this thing and, oh, that person over there is doing that. Like, they will, in 3 words, like, denounce one entire person and their whole life. And they're like, that person is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. You know, like, you want to come over here and do this. And, of course, I can play that. And eventually they get reduced down to silence because there's nothing else to say. Because, like, I don't have a position I'm holding.
Because you're not, like, reciprocating, or you're not giving that energy.
I'm just playing with it. Like, I'll play with it. I'm not, like, trying to antagonize, but I am capable of, like, teasing, you know. I used to do that a lot when I was younger, so, like, I can play that game, you know, if you really force me to. That's not my main mode of operation, but I know how to do it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like, I think that's my own struggle as well. I feel like sometimes I get carried away more than I think, then I have to kind of get myself back. Like, a good thing is that I'm more aware of it, like, than I used to think. So I'm still working on my fake side, the fake side you put up to actually survive in the real world, and the real authentic self. Even, you know, this is the weird thing, like, even when you make spiritual friends, not all of them are exactly on your level. Some of them are doing new age, some of them think that you're pessimistic for talking about the negativity, but it's just that the more aware you are, you know, the less that they actually attack you, because they use the unconscious free will of human beings to kind of trick us into doing things. That's how they actually bind us to different agreements. It's through unconscious free will, because these negative higher beings do not actually have free will. So they exploit our free will to get what they want. And for that to actually, like, vanquish, we have to, like, be aware and like basically start reading, or just, perhaps even meditating, because I feel like these messages actually come to you through meditation. If you're actually listening to the implicit meanings and messages that we get, like when we're more in tune with ourselves. So, yeah, like that's one of the major learnings of this year for me, that I kind of understood. Like, even if they're spiritual, you may not actually get along. Like, as in, they may be on a very different frequency of yours. Like, they may have to probably go through different lifetimes to get there, or more years to get there. We may never know.
Everybody's still presenting. Like, everybody's still presenting it, even if you feel like you're as enlightened as is possible to be. Doesn't matter. You're still presenting something. Like, you're giving out this thing. You're giving out this is me. This is, even I'm saying it with my words, like, this is me. Still, that is still something different. It may be closer, but it's still something different to what you are literally energetically inside, in your inner experience. So, like, there's always going to be some misinterpretation when communication is happening, especially when it's happening with words, because words suck, for the most part. But when you do this thing and you get deeper into yourself and understanding, who you are, what you are, how you relate to these other creatures that are like running around out here, you start learning how to communicate on the deeper levels, like on the subtle levels, on the subtle mental levels, on the subtle emotional levels, on how the body's moving and stuff, and how you're communicating with that. And the words become less relevant, and it's harder to sit there and
your body gestures and the way you kind of communicate with your eyes.
It's harder to get into petty arguments, because you'd have to be like air punching each other through the screen or something, because the words are they're not taking like precedent anymore as far as the whole thing. They're like just as a small piece of it,
Yeah. So, I mean, thinking back, I think you're right. When we should not actually have any expectations whatsoever. So even if we meet people at different levels, we just have to kind of accept it.
Yeah.
The struggle actually becomes, where do you keep them in your life, and where do they stand? Or you just let life as it comes. That's the struggle of kind of discerning. And because when we actually try and discern, we may actually try and push every single person in our lives away by finding, because we're always looking at the negative faults in them, as opposed to what they have to offer us. So we may end up like pushing every single person away from our life.
Yeah. I think internally you go through kind of cycles, as well as how you're seeing the other people. Like, do I need so many people in my life? How many? Even they say, you can hold 200 people mentally, as far as how many people maybe 200 names, and then a brief something about them. Then you might have, I don't know, 10 or to 20 close relationships on a sort of day-to-day basis. But that's not many, like, that's not a lot. On social media, we have like, I don't know, I have like 700 friends. Some people have 5,000 friends. And how many of those are actually meaningful to my day-to-day life? Or is it just me getting my Facebook fix by scrolling down and seeing all this stuff happening,
Yeah, like, how many of them are your real friends, that they know what you're doing and they know you and your life? Not many.
Right.
So
that's why you gotta prune the hedges every once in a while, like trim the hedges.
Yes, like, I always do a cleansing on my profile, which, I feel like, which is very important as far as I'm concerned. It's like I have to delete and like add a few other friends.
Yeah.
Every few months, or when I feel like I need to do that to kind of cleanse my life.
I need to do that. I don't think I've really ever done it, but
I actually got rid of my whole profile because of this. I have like 20 friends on the current profile that I have now, like exactly 20.
On a Facebook profile?
The only people that I know, like, I see them on YouTube, or the friends that I've known from.
This is your current Facebook profile?
Yeah, it's not even my name, actually. It was a name that I created when I was like 13. So I still kind of have it. So I used it for my incognito mode.
Incognito?
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like it's nice to go incognito, to figure yourself out, and then when you put yourself back on again, like you know how to deal with things more wisely.
Yeah.
Um,
I did the same thing. I did the same thing with my whole group of people has changed completely. The only ones that have remained really from my earlier life, like when I was in the relationship before all this happened, then there's not very many of them, you know, like I run into old friends here and there. Like I just ran into somebody at the gym that I hadn't seen in forever, and like we're pretty good friends. You know, we sat and had a conversation for 10 minutes and like re-exchanged numbers and all that. But it's still like part of an old life that it just kind of I kind of like went away from everything. I went away from everybody because the whole thing was I needed freedom. I needed to like literally remove myself from all imposing structures, you know.
mhm.
And now
Yeah.
people are coming back in and other new people are coming as well, but old relationships that match that frequency that you were at before, they're they're going to have to drop off somehow, or at least to some extent, otherwise you're going to
Yes.
go back there. Like you're going to go,
Down.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to go back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a saying like your group of friends actually define you and your life,
Hmm.
and perhaps your future. Like if you look at a group or, for example, a cult, you can see the mirrored life experiences between them. It's so weird. It's like they're like the same. Like for example, if person A is in a relationship, like person B may have the exact same dynamic as his friend person A. You know, I've seen it in many friends and their friend circles. And yeah, that's the irony of being connected with others. Like we are more connected than we think. So we
Yeah.
have to just kind of look out for each other
And
and help each other.
when you get that group of people to be not sort of ego driven and trying to put you into their box so they feel okay about themselves, when you get into a group of people that simply allows you to be how you are and receives benefit from the relationship and you give benefit but it's a free kind of a relationship, and say you
Mhm.
have your nearest five people like that, then it's gonna allow you to be pulling from like your genuine assets, like your skill set. You know, your genuine things that you have to offer. They're gonna help enhance that without trying to tell you like you got to do this, you got to do that, and you will have a whole entire new way of living, a whole new entire way of feeling about yourself and your own possibilities, what you could be doing with your life, how you could be interacting, and all that stuff just completely changes.
Yeah, because you're holding that unconditional space for them
Yeah.
to be the way they are. So even if they make mistakes, you're like, that's fine. That's fine. It's all good. It's not really a mistake. It's just a learning curve in your life. I think that that's the ultimate goal for like people like us, like when we can really hold space for every single human being without actually having to look at them as something negative or positive, and just they are who they are, like they're neutral.
It's
I
like
think.
you become neutral with like appreciation and gratitude as the only sort of motivators,
Yes. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and there is no longer a format for like how often should we interact, how often should I say hello. You know, if you think about it, that that's actually a thing. Like you need to know like when should I text somebody. Somebody has to send the first text. Like how do you know how that dynamic happens? And what I'm saying is, if you're with somebody who's allowing you to be yourself and you're doing the same with them, there isn't really a schedule
You just
anymore. It's how it happens, how
Yeah,
it
like
happens.
I feel like when you have that kind of relationship with somebody, like your body actually knows better than your mind. Your mind be like, your mind is like curious about getting to know the other person, but your body's like, no, it's not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
You know it when you feel it.
Yeah.
Just do it when you feel it.
And you
So I've
the
seen
same
it
thing
more and more
happens.
often.
It happens like with me. People that
Right.
I know, they're not even in my head whatsoever. Like they're gone. Like even my baby, he's not always in my head, you know, like they come
Yeah.
into your mind. And the way it happens with me now is the person will come into my mind, and then I'll get a text from them, and 2 seconds later, or you know, I'll think of Jackson, and then Kim will tell me something about him, or something like that. Like they come as a unit, like it all comes together, and it has nothing to do with
Synchronicity.
me
Yeah.
like pining about him, or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like there an interaction it needs to happen now, and therefore you're getting some signals that you should do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the most amazing phenomenon of synchronicity. Like, but another thing about synchronicity is that like they also show you major signs for like a major life event that's going to probably change your life forever, like a
Mm-hmm.
turning point or a tipping point, whatever. Um, I think that I don't know. Recently, I've been seeing all these like the what do you say, like 555, 444,
Yeah,
like they're in
yeah, right.
like perfect tandem.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about artificial synchronicity?
Mm. Somebody else is asking me about that, like if it can be manipulated or not, like by other
I
entities.
feel like, oh my God, I think that it happened for me uh, through a love bite situation.
Uh huh.
When I had this experience, I felt like I was seeing these numbers, and it so happened that I had that situation in the connection at that point of time. I thought it was something more divine, but it turned out to be the exact opposite. Like it was the most draining and it was pretty toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it can go either ways, but if you're more in tune with yourself and you're like meditating and you're working on your like your shadow self like all the time,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, and you're aware that these artificial synchronicities occur, and you just kind of like you have to claim your sovereignty every now and then with a prayer or whatever that you think
Yeah.
is possible for you. I think that it kind of stops, and then that's when you actually start seeing the real synchronicities that's being presented from the divine self,
Yeah.
basically.
The way I discern
Yeah.
is that if there's any thought form, being, entity, sign, anything whatsoever that's telling me something like you ought to do this, like, and it's not something that correlates with all of my intuition and all of the things that are making my moment up, then to me
Yeah.
it's some sort of an intrusion, and I'm like, no, you know,
Yeah,
it has to correlate with
absolutely.
everything, and it
Yeah.
can't.
Like
Nobody can tell you if something is telling you what to do. It's all the same shit.
it's
Like
not.
God never tells anybody anything ever, never ever. God is silent. God
Yes.
never has said one word. You know?
Yes, I feel you. I've always felt this. It's like, when you see something in your head or when someone is telling you what to do, it's not true. It's something that's, probably masquerading
Yeah.
to be divine, to wear you off your path. You
God,
can
by the
only
nature
feel so.
of God, cannot be like a piece in God's creation. Like, if there is a entity with a form that's using language and is telling you something, it's not God, as in the big God. Like, it's part of it, but it's never gonna say
But
like
it's the
here is scripture and this is what you got. That's why I have the problem with the organized religion and dogma, because it's like this is it. No, it's like no, that's not. You're like, stop telling lies. Every single time somebody speaks, you're lying with all the words. I'm lying. Like there's something that's deeper than what the words are saying, and God is further beyond
yeah,
all of that.
yeah, absolutely. I actually have a very interesting story behind this. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I think it's
Is my mic messing up?
okay. Sorry about that. I think my Bluetooth ran out of battery.
Ah, you can hear me now
Okay.
though.
Yeah, now
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I know a lot of like celebrities, right?
Mhm.
Apparently like one of the celebrities in India, like he was actually an Oscar winning award musician. His name is A.R. Rahman. Apparently he was Hindu, like he was born into my religion. Like for Hindus, you have to be born into a religion, you can't convert. And apparently when he was in his mid 20s, um, apparently Allah, um, the creator for um, what do
Hinduism,
you call? No, no, Islam.
Islam.
He came and told him change your religion to like, change to being a Muslim, and you're going to reach greater heights.
Uh-huh.
And he actually converted, and he went on to becoming one of the most finest musicians in India, and he won like 2 Oscar awards, like, which is great. But this is what people don't understand. I'm dang sure that it's not the real thing asking him to change or do.
Never. Never ever.
Exactly. Like, people think, oh, if I'm getting something great out of it, why should I bother? Well, honey, you're going to get your soul, like, trapped for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
Probably sold yourself to something that you didn't even know that existed. And for centuries or for lifetimes to come, you'll be stuck in there.
Have you looked into Scientology
Religion?
at all? You know about Scientology at all?
what's
Hubbard's. Oh man, Scientology was started by this guy named Ron Hubbard, who is a science fiction writer.
Uh-huh.
Right? He started it.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Is it the one where Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Okay, I actually went to the museum in LA, which is so weird we talk about this. Yeah.
Oh man.
I was like, I'm not getting inside, but I just kind of.
So he started this religion, and he's not alive anymore, but he's like the founder, and the whole thing is built around a little tiny device that reads your electromagnetic waves. So they strap you up to this little thing on your wrist, and you'll say something, and then whoever's reading it will help determine like what sort of entities are in you. Basically, it's about, they call it becoming clear, like, and it's paralleled with what's actually happening, with you clearing out your own shit, but they attached money to it, and they attached all kinds of power to it. And the thing I'm getting to is that they set people up in billion-year contracts.
Oh my god.
That's part of it. It's part of the seagoing group. I forgot what they're called. They're called a certain thing, but they have actual like an arm, like a sea group, like a ships and stuff. They have people on the ships and working, and people sign contracts for billion years.
Wow. So they're actually aware that this is happening to them, or?
I don't know if they fully believe it, or if it's almost like, people play games like, oh, it's horse shit. I know you're saying like you're gonna enslave me for 1,000 years, but I think you're full of shit. But I'll still take like the little reward you're giving me here or whatever. I think it might be something like that. But people,
Wow.
it's dicey
Is
business.
it close to like the Illuminati? Like, I've always heard about it, but I don't know exactly what it is about.
Illuminati, kind of like people that wield power are, unless they're doing self-work and operating in harmony with the rest of the system, if people are wielding power, they're doing it through means, like they're using tools. That's what occult sciences are all about. That's what the sort of Masonic astrology is about. It's about wielding the dark versus the light, and then extracting power from that little vibrational buzz that's getting when you're like, dark's gonna win, light's gonna win, dark's gonna win, and you got some heat going now, so then you pull that out and turn it into something or other. So that's what Scientology is doing. But I don't think it's easier to dupe people when they're stuck on this original narrative that says like you live for 70 years, then you die, then you go to heaven or hell. It's like, no, it's bigger than that. And if you enter into a billion-year contract, I promise you that's going to have some repercussion. I'm not going to say necessarily you're going to be stuck for a billion years. I'm just saying you're going to carry that through, and you're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's not to say that the non-achievers are like the best, but it's just that they're actually dealing with the real shit. Like,
yeah,
I believe like the homeless people and the mentally retarded people. It's weird. I feel like people with mental disabilities or mental illness, and I feel like they're very special. I feel like they're
connected into the spiritual world. That's why they're having a conversation on the sidewalk, and you're like, who are they talking to? It's like, well, you can't see who they're talking to. They're talking to somebody, but And
we name them like schizophrenic, which is so stupid. But.
Yeah, we gotta sell our pharmaceutical things somehow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we call the kids ADD and say they all need Ritalin and Adderall and whatever else.
I actually think that I have ADD because I get distracted very easily. Like, I zone out if I'm not interested.
Do you take medicine?
No.
No.
I don't.
So you're just a normal human being.
A normal human being with, you can say, the milder symptoms of ADD and ADHD. Not too bad.
You've been carrying the thread of the conversation pretty well, so maybe you have ADD around stuff that doesn't interest you.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to tell you. Like, if I don't like something, I just kind of zone out, like, completely into my own world.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit.
The modern school system will naturally make every child have ADD because it's such boring shit they're cramming down their throats. Of course, what else is the kid gonna do? Like, nothing cool is happening.
Yeah, like, we're basically learning all man-made bullshit, and we're forced to believe and practice it without even understanding where it came from, how this guy actually arrived at so-and-so theory. So that's what pisses me off. Like, when I try to question the lecturer, and he goes like, I have to go back and research and come back to you on that. Like, he wouldn't know.
He would say that, really?
Yeah, he would.
That's
yeah,
interesting that, he actually, like, said he was going to get in there, and look at what you're talking about.
Yeah. Actually, some lecturers are pretty nice in that way. Like, they would actually go back and research, and they would come back.
And what do they say when they come back?
Probably they would take too long. Or they would say, like, okay, this is the theory. I don't know why it works, but it works. And you just have to kind of,
okay,
like, ride along with it. Like, they wouldn't have anything, obviously, like, reasonable and believable. Like, for example, like, economics. I don't understand why that subject even exists. I find it's complete bullshit. And I feel like it's so embedded with the matrix. It's so weird. Like, when I learned economics, it's created to brainwash people to think a certain way about money and businesses. And that's predominantly how our politics and our political leaders and
well, that's the economics is the language that was created so real problems can be avoided. That's literally what happens. If you imagine what happens when such and so Joe Blow senator gets up and talks about something, is he talking about anything besides economics for the most part? No, he's saying money, and now these people need jobs, which is money, and now the such and so subsidy, which is money, is going to come in and give such and so people the ability to give benefits. It's all about giving permission to people to actually help one another, but it doesn't actually get them to help one another. So it's the money thing is, for the most part, just an excuse to not look at our problems. That's how it looks like to me. But I can see a use for quantification of how the energy is flowing throughout the realm. Okay, I understand that there can be something to that, but the money
you can draw positive points from it.
Yeah.
But for the most of it, like, I see that it's just a exact mirror of the round bullshit that we deal with, like, on an everyday basis.
Well, if you've ever listened to, like, sit into some, a financial advisor, lecture, all they're doing is they're giving different names to different ways money can move around. Like, this money is called a bond. This money is called a dividend. This money is called a blah. They have a billion different names, and they've chopped up the thing in 1,000 different ways, and they're all impossible to understand, except by the so-called experts that know what they're doing. But then they're experts because then they can tell little guy over here that only makes $10 an hour. They can tell him, like, well, dude, you got $5 extra per month. You should invest it. And I'll tell you how to invest it and stuff like that. But the guy himself never understands what money is in the first place and how, maybe it could serve him better or this or that. It's always about, like, it's just too convoluted. It's not that...
Yeah.
Energy exchange is not that complicated.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what it is. It's representing energetic exchange. That's what money is. Nothing else.
Yeah, it's just the freedom to be whatever you want. It's like a liberation payment that you actually give to these people to actually live the life that you desire.
It's an overlay.
But actually, yeah, sure. But it's actually, like, having too much money also kind of scares me, because I feel like it has a loophole in maintaining, like, when your extrinsic motivation takes over your intrinsic motivation. Yeah.
What having a lot of money does when that person hasn't done their self-work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
they
Yeah.
have power that they don't deserve to have. That's all.
Yes.
It's literally all that it means. And guess what they do with it? They fuck it up big time. And they fuck themselves up, and then everybody else gets miserable, and then the thing comes in to start rationalizing, their decisions and all of that. And then they try to fix all the problem with little band-aids made out of more money. And of course that doesn't work either.
Yeah, absolutely. I reached that 100%. Because, like, I always been asked money now on the second thought. I feel like I don't think I know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I'll probably like slip into like wrong hand and probably veer off my path. I feel like having a lot of money is going to put you off your path. I don't know why I see the way it is, but it's just that you have more temptations as you currently have just a decent amount of money in your bank, as opposed to like billion or $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
It really is like in the Bible it said, have no other idols before me. The money thing literally has become the god here for the most part. And the reason I say that is because you don't question God, right? Well, guess what? You don't question money either. If that money came from, if it's blood money that came from illegal mining, you know what I'm saying, and people died in there,
Yeah, and the
it
backside.
still is worth as much to you, and nobody questions when you hand that green paper over at all. They don't know where it came from. They don't know how that energy got going,
Like transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
So it's
Like,
the God, it's the means
for being
to.
a businessman, I think that's when they really extract, from millions of stacks where they're only being paid like in China, like for example, Apple, right? Like I think the workers only pay like $1 for an hour, which is crazy. And these Apple
They had to install
people, like,
nets
yeah, like
on the
they're doing much
buildings.
more.
They had to install nets on the buildings because they were jumping off. If that doesn't that's why I don't talk about it very much, because to me it's laughably obvious what it's there for and who it's serving and this and that. So I don't get in there and attack it, because the thing gets made stronger by attacking it and all this stuff. So I do my own thing. I don't I'm doing what I know how to do, and I know all of it. So I don't get in these little tiffs with Apple about whether money should exist or not. I have an iPhone. I'm talking to you on a Mac computer, so
Me too. I have an iPad and an iPhone, but
maybe
I just don't
that's
forget it.
hypocritical a bit, but
I understand. I mean, we can try and think, like, are we, like, I think we all have, like, hypocrisy here and there, but we just have to kind of notice it, and I would say not to get in the attacking mode, because then, it starts to attach itself onto us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I absolutely understand.
It's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, and trying to find your own way. But if you compare with money, how it artificially wields power, you just have to look at any work situation where a corporation is involved and the hierarchy structure.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, as far as emotional intelligence or spiritual intelligence, the high ones are not the ones that are on top of that list. And the ones underneath, who feel like they're more with it and they're more understanding of overall things, that creates a huge imbalance, because these ones down here who are artificially made to be lower than the ones up here understand that the guy up here is full of shit, but they can't say anything about it because they need money. So therefore the cycle,
Quiet.
reinforces itself, and everybody feels uncomfortable up and down the line. And even the top guy's uncomfortable because his boss is telling him he needs to sell shit. And so he's stressed out about it all the time, and he needs to go medicate with alcohol and prostitutes and whatever else he does, the whole system is just designed to extract all sorts of bad emotions from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, they feed on the negative emotion, but that's their food, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely get it.
But as well, overall energetics do change, and unless you want to live in a place where you're just simply a member of loosh farming, then you need to use your own creative abilities to help change your realm, because even the so-called invisible ones that are farming loosh are not necessarily something that you can't create out of the picture. You know, like have you tried it yet? Have you tried yet to see if you can be not producing negative emotions all the time and still somehow survive in the realm? Like, have you tried that? You know?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of the candidates that need the whole resurfacing. I basically live in the hub of illusion farming, as we call it. It's so weird here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, like I think Europe is a lot more quieter. Like Ukraine, I have a few friends there. Life is different. In a way that, yeah, they have all these political ideas embedded in them, but there's a lot more nature and seclusion that you can draw positive energy from, as opposed to just buildings and
Hmm.
whatnot.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
go out, just sit out in the woods for a while. See how many
Yeah.
creatures come up and try to control you and force you to do something. Like, just take notes. Write down in your notebook. Like, the tree asked me to go sit in the corner, and then the fox came and yelled at me. And then, like, take notes.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're totally free, and nobody cares. And even the all the nature knows you're there as well. And you're breathing in their CO2, and you're breathing in their oxygen. They're breathing in your CO2. Like you feel it happening while you're in there, and it's simple. Like, go recharge yourself.
They just respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's absolutely true.
So, I think we're coming up to something here.
I think it has surpassed like probably 90 minutes. I'm not too
No,
sure.
no, we're like at an hour, a little over an hour, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Let me check. Whoops.
Then,
I gotta stop leaving pictures up on the background that pop up when I try to move. Quick time. Anyway, I don't care about the time, but I think we should probably wrap up for this
okay, yeah.
particular
Sure.
session. But this again, Gaythri.
Yeah, Gaythri,
Would
you
you
got it.
would you like me to give any links to social media, or
I
do you want to connect with any people in any way if they would like to connect with you?
I don't mind, but I don't have a link as of now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean they can know my name, and if I so happen to open a YouTube channel, which I'm thinking, but I feel like baby steps. So I
Yeah.
don't like barge myself in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wait for the right timing.
Okay. Well, we'll just let it be for that for now.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you for coming on. This was
Yeah,
fun.
thank you for having me. Oh my God. Like, it's such a pleasure. Like, talking to somebody that I can absolutely talk anything with. And everything that I just love talking about at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it's like my life, say my life purpose. It's like an ever-ending learning curve with
Oh,
spirituality. And just,
you do readings, right?
yes.
Would
Yeah,
you like
I
to
do.
give that contact information if somebody would like to get a reading from you?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, well, send me a message after we cut this off with
Okay.
however you'd like people to contact you if they want a reading.
Okay. I actually, yeah, sure.
Is that good?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, the thing is, I was actually finding, like, I was actually praying for a platform where I deal with clients where they're looking for conscious work and not just the relationship. Like, when is he going to call me? When is he going to text me? When am I going to marry him?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the little stuff. It's a little scheme of stuff when compared to the big scheme
Yeah.
of things that we're actually meant to do. I think that I can help people with that as opposed to the little and petty small talks, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I can help them with that, but at the end of the day, I feel more empowered to actually do something more impactful. Um, yeah, that would be great. That would
Okay.
be amazing.
Send me if you want to connect with people through email, or I don't know whatever sort of method you're comfortable with sharing. Just send me through Messenger afterward, and I'll upload it with that information.
All right, thank you
Okay.
so much. Oh my God,
Thank you.
like it's such a pleasure.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good one,
Yeah.
Gaythri.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.